Hey OTCers, I don't know about you, but I'm getting that Antonio Conte feeling. Is he going to do it all over again with Napoli? It never really seemed likely at the start of the season, even though he's been here before, inheriting an underachieving big club who were looking for an improbable title. I don't even know if that was a realistic aim for Napoli. I mean, if we go back all the way to 2011, 2012, when Antonio Conte first took charge of Juventus as head coach and gave that famous first speech in the dressing room where he asked the team who'd finished 7th the year before, "Aren't you tired of being so shit?" And off the back of that, they had an unbeaten Serie A season, won the title, and then it was title after title after title in Serie A for Juventus. I suppose it was, in a way, more remarkable that he went and did that with Chelsea, his first experience in English football in 2016-2017. Record amount of Premier League wins by the end of the season for a team that had fallen from grace, on their way to becoming champions. And 30 wins from 38 in the end? A remarkable record, really. And it couldn't last, but still, reproducing the Juventus effect. Now, if he was able to win the title in Serie A with Napoli in 2025, it would be an extraordinary hat-trick, really. One almost without precedent, to take over a club that's really down in the dumps, or a team that's really down in the dumps, and propel them to winning the league title again. Now, the difference is, I suppose, with Antonio Conte, is not only did we wonder if this was possible, because Inter have looked like the best team in Serie A and one of the best teams in Europe for a few years now, but also Napoli's situation. Now, not just the fact that they were 10th last season, but I think Conte's understanding of the situation, and maybe it's indicative of what he went through at Tottenham, and I suppose what Tottenham went through under him, that he understands that you can't win the title in every single job now. And I think he went into the Napoli job certainly with a desire to fight for honours, but whether he thought that was possible, and not just because they'd finished 10th last season, I do wonder. Of course, Antonio Conte has always been really demanding in the transfer market, really particular about what he wants, giving hell to the board and the sporting directors and the players and everyone around him, because he's such a perfectionist. But not only did Napoli have such a humbling season, but I think you have to look at the reasons why they had such a humbling season last year. Now, part of that was the bungled succession to Luciano Spalletti, where they went for Rudy Garcia. That didn't work. Went through a number of different coaches, and I guess it was a little surprise in the end that they ended up with Conte. And perhaps if the back end of Tottenham hadn't been so bad, they would have really struggled to get Conte. Now, clearly, he wanted to come back to Italy, so there was a bit of chronology in it as well, because I think if you look at the time, Inter, as we say, really achieving well in recent years, and so Simone Inzaghi's not really shiftable. He burnt a bridge or two with Juventus, so you wonder, where is the optimum place for him to go back to? I wondered on OTC a while ago, actually probably about halfway through last season, if post Mourinho, Conte would succeed him, just like he had done at Chelsea. But that's not come to pass either. But Conte taking on the Napoli job is an indication of he understands that he could take over a club with not limited means compared to, well, they're not Leyton Orient or Wimbledon, but they are a team that does not have an elite level budget. And if you look to why this all started, all these problems with Napoli last season following their incredible Scudetto win in 2023, it all goes back to Aurelio De Laurentiis, the president and owner. And of course, he took over Napoli at a very low financial ebb. He's worked them up all the way, and he's done a great job of doing that. But there is always a feeling that he's slightly doing stuff on the cheap. That was certainly the case when he wouldn't renegotiate a contract with Spalletti, which led to Spalletti being upset and leaving the job. And, you know, he deserved that for taking them to the Scudetto. It was an incredible result that no one ever expected. And you look at what's happened with various players. The fact that the relationship with Victor Osimhen has weathered. The fact that the relationship with Kvaratskhelia, who's still one of the lowest paid senior players in the Napoli squad, or was until he left for Paris Saint-Germain this week. That is something that was a situation that was allowed to mushroom because De Laurentiis wasn't keen on automatically rewarding someone for success. So maybe Spalletti never would have left if he'd have been given a new contract rather than just had the optional extra year actioned on his deal, and not even to his face by post, which was an extraordinary thing for him to receive in the mail. Now, if we look at the Kvaratskhelia case and what's led to him going to PSG, for example, is at the start of last season, where they should have been speaking to Kvaratskhelia about extending that contract. Of course, he came over from Georgian football, having left Russia as a relative unknown, it's certainly in Serie A. And therefore, he was getting paid a relatively low amount of money. But he was one of the best, if not the best player in the team that won the Scudetto. The fans called him Kvaradona for a reason. And after they won the title for the first time without Diego Maradona being in the team, Kvaratskhelia deserved a little financial pat on the back, and he wasn't really asking for the earth. But the first time his agent touched down in Naples at the start of last season, he was told by the club, "We didn't even say we would discuss an extension with you, go away." And from that point onwards, Napoli, whether they knew it or not, were fighting a rearguard action in terms of how to keep him. Now, they've made him good offers in recent months. But by that point, not only does he know that he can earn more at PSG, of course he knows that, but there's a bit of a relationship of trust that's been broken in that time, where they could have taken the initiative and decided to reward him, but they didn't. And lots of other players, coaches from Napoli past, Lorenzo Insigne, I think would probably put himself in this category, would know exactly how he's feeling at that sense. So even though he did those social media posts this week where he thanked the club for everything they'd done for him and said how much he'd missed the place and they turned him into the guy he was today and all the rest of it, I think he's probably quite happy to draw a line under Napoli. Whether he's the right fit for PSG, obviously we spoke about that on the podcast earlier this week with myself, Dotton and David Cartledge. But in terms of what Napoli are going to do without him, he's not been one of their key players this season. And it's not just the numbers in terms of goals and assists, but the advanced numbers, you know, how many take-ons he's completed, all the sort of stuff that you would expect from Kvaratskhelia to open up space for others, to really be the technical leader of the team. And he's not necessarily been that. Now, of course, Antonio Conte loves to play down expectations. So he said, look, we're the gate crashers, is what he said at the start of the season. We're the ones who can make it difficult for the other teams at the top who are really challenging for the title, like Inter and Juve. He's maybe slightly coming away from that now. He said, well, look, we're gonna try and see how far we go, which is not quite the same as saying we are title contenders and we are going for it. But he's also been a bit wait and see with what might happen for a successor to Kvaratskhelia. He was a bit irritable about it after the 3-2 win at Atalanta, which, as far as statements went, was a really big one. Not just because Atalanta are a genuine contender and one of the best teams in Europe at the moment, not just because they came back from going a goal down to do it and they won a shootout without Kvaratskhelia having moved on from him. But it was the fact that if you go back to November, they were absolutely thwacked 3-0 by Atalanta at the Stadio Diego Armando Maradona, and they looked a poor second there. And Conte seemed justified on the day of saying, you know what, this proves what I was saying all along, that we're not really a contender, that we're not really ready to challenge yet. Atalanta looked more finished than us, and he was absolutely right. So really, for them to go on and produce such a big result and such a gutsy performance in such a big game, not only put them 6 points clear at the top of the table, of course, Inter a little bit behind, 6 points behind, with 2 games in hand, and as we said, they're still the best team in Italy, but still, it gives Napoli a real fighting chance, and they don't have that European football in common with that first season Juventus team that he had and that first season Chelsea team that he had as well, which is why we're making the parallels. But I think you look at that now and you think, okay, well, maybe they really are on the brink of doing something special. You look at the other players who are prepared to stand up. Scott McTominay has been an absolute revelation this season. Romelu Lukaku has not found his perfect Conte form, which suggests maybe there's even a little bit more in the tank. David Neres in the short term is the replacement for Kvaratskhelia, and he's played really, really well, the Brazilian, in recent weeks. Now, they're still looking for a replacement. Now, Conte was a little bit coy about it. He said, well, it could just be no one. But then again, if we go and sign someone big, you're going to say to me, oh, Conte gets his player to go for the Scudetto, so I can't win. Well, he's right. You can't win because now there is expectation. So he's right to say, compared to the team that won the title, there's no Kvaratskhelia, there's no Zielinski, there's no Osimhen, there's no Kim Min-jae. But they have actually recruited pretty well when you look at McTominay, when you look at Neres, when you look at Alessandro Bongiorno, their outstanding defender, who unfortunately is injured for the next little while as well. So maybe they'll get in an extra centre back too. But I think they're in a great position because if they don't go big and replace Kvaratskhelia, so if it's not Alejandro Garnacho or Erin Jagrova or whoever else, then fine. You know, they've got players who can create goal chances. You know, they have Neres, they have other players. Matteo Politano, who scored a brilliant second goal in this away game at Atalanta. So they do have those options. And I wonder if they might be better keeping their powder dry for the summer rather than getting rinsed in January when, you know, players tend to cost a lot more unless teams are absolutely desperate or clubs are absolutely desperate to get them off the books. So I think that they're in a really, really good position. But already with Conte, his spell at Napoli so far has been a huge success. Not because they're definitely going to win the league, but because they're in a position where people are even talking about it. That seemed absolutely impossible. At the start of the season, really, the target had to be Champions League. They look like they're going to get that. And they look like they're going to be able to build from there. But of course, what Conte needs more than anything else, I think time has shown, and Chelsea and Juventus have shown in his times with them, he needs time to work with the players, to get into their heads and to get into their hearts. He's done that really, really well so far. And even in making an exciting Scudetto race, and long may it continue, by the way, Conte has already been a success that a lot of people didn't think he would be when he returned to Italian football and returned to Napoli. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget to like and subscribe to get more of this good stuff from On the Continent. And of course, tune into the podcast every Thursday with me and Dot Adebayo and send in your questions either here or on the socials for Ask OTC, which is every Friday.